Let's move forward to Goal 2, access to broad and challenging curriculum, new English learner course literacy advancement. Thank you.
While the previous presentation was focused on a very expansive topic and how we're integrating academics, agency, voice, and all of your comments, you saw how integrated and expansive that topic was. For access to broad and challenging curriculum, we're going to focus on something very specific. We're going to drill down on something, and we're drilling down specifically on a new English learner course, literacy advancement, that we're going to be putting in place next year. This is not the entirety of all of English learner, like that last presentation was expansive. This is focused, but this is really important to see the problem that we've identified and what we're going to be solving with this new course.
I'll go ahead and get started. Making sure we're on the right slide, Teresa. Let's go to the next slide. So we'd like you to understand the potential of this course through the eyes of Lucia. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Lucia is a daughter of immigrant parents. She was born in this country, and in her young life, she has demonstrated great perseverance as she and her family have had to overcome various social and financial challenges. She's brilliant. She's bilingual. She often translates for her parents on many occasions. She attends class regularly, does well in her schoolwork. She wants to go to college, and she has hopes and dreams for her future. Lucia is also described as a limited English proficient student. She's also described as a long-term English learner. As you can tell, I didn't start with those labels because Lucia has potential that far exceeds those labels. Lucia, like Victoria and like Ben, who just presented, would benefit greatly from opportunities which will strengthen their ability to say and write what they're thinking. So how do we provide students like Lucia and Ben and Victoria explicit instruction on how to effectively articulate their brilliance? With that, I'd like to turn it over to Teresa, who will tell us how we plan to do that for the next school year.
Turn on the green button.
Oh, thank you. Okay. The Office of Language Acquisition's vision is to support school communities, to innovate teaching and learning, to inspire English learners to imagine and realize their full personal, social, and academic potential, to be contributing members of an ever-changing, diverse global society. The 1,531 students at middle school will be served in this course. Our hope that this course is a seed to extend the vision that Ola has to our system, to incorporate instruction to accelerate and simultaneously develop academic English and content knowledge in motivating and engaging ways, to ensure that long-term English learners meet the goals of readiness for college and career and civic life, be broadly literate, have the capacities of a literate individual, and be prepared for the 21st century. The 1,460 students at high school are waiting for a new classroom experience. I recently heard a playwright talk about the power of if. Through the power of if, we can inspire and ignite our system. If we design learning experiences that activate imagination, curiosity about self, communities, and the world, then students like Lucia will know how to contribute and how to add value. If we can motivate our long-term English learners and the adults who teach them to imagine themselves beyond perceptions, the perceptions they hold of themselves, and the perceptions that others hold of them. If they can learn to stand in their power, if they can be able to become, if they will be able to do and become who they are meant to be and achieve their highest potential. Our work is about widening the sphere of success for all students with a relentless focus on academic, social, and emotional learning. Our inquiry question is, how do we lead our classrooms, schools, districts to support and sustain culturally responsive academic, social, and emotional learning experience for students? Our goal for this course is to create a student-centered experience that utilizes strategic partnerships and technology to increase competence, confidence, and independence. This course is designed using the literacy, ELD, and technology, as well as social justice standards. The image on the left is called the Circle of Implementation of ELA Literacy and ELD Instruction. It comes from the California ELA-ELD framework, which is a blend of the California Common Core literacy standards as well as the California Common Core ELD standards. And as noted on the left, you can hardly see it in the smaller circle, the ELD standards are embedded inside of the literacy standards. The circle on the right highlights the three premises of the California ELD standards. The framework expects that by the time California students complete high school, they have developed the readiness for college, career, and civic life, attained the capacities of a literate individual, and become broadly literate, and acquired the skills for living in the 21st century. The overarching goal of the ELA literacy and ELD instruction includes readiness for civic life, strong reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills that enable students to be an active and responsible citizen. Students need the knowledge and skills to interpret and communicate ideas and negotiate, collaborate in ways that positively impact democratic policies, practices, and people's lives. In the box in the corner, you can see the International Society for Technology and Education, ISTE standards. And this is the foremost organization in teaching technology in the classroom. The ISTE standards are a framework for students, educators, administrators, coaches, and computer science educators to rethink education, create innovative learning experiences. The standards are helping educators and educational leaders worldwide to re-engineer school classrooms for digital age learning, no matter where they are on the journey of effective ed-tech integration. We've interwoven the social justice standards. These standards divide into 4 domains: identity, diversity, justice, and action. We ask ourselves, what motivates Lucia? What are her academic needs? And what will help her pass the LCAP? If we prepare our long-term English learners to communicate effectively and to become literate individuals, students will demonstrate independence, build strong content knowledge, respond to various demands of audience, task, purpose, and discipline, comprehend as well as critique, value evidence using technology and digital media strategically and capably, understanding other perspectives in culture. The course provides steps to pursue success through academic proficiency in reading, writing, listening, and speaking.
So we are very excited about the content in this course. This course is made up of 6 units of study aligned to social justice standards. Throughout the units, Lucia and her peers will practice reading, writing, speaking, and listening while collecting evidence of their learning in an online digital portfolio. In the beginning of the year, students will be told about a culminating end-of-the-year project, which will be to deliver a TED Talk to their class, a group of students on campus, or possibly their community. As students work through the content of each unit, they make connections with themselves and their community to reflect, synthesize, and curate content for this final TED Talk. The process is supported by their digital portfolio, which serves as a tool for collecting and showcasing evidence of learning. In each unit, Lucia and her peers will engage in content through text, videos, podcasts, and classroom discussions. Learning through multiple means of representation will reinforce students' reading, listening, and speaking skills. These activities will help them develop their understanding of who they are, how they see others, how others see them, and who they want to be. All reading, videos, and discussions will support students in the reflective process as they learn to be introspective. As students watch videos and read articles about how best to learn about themselves and others, they will have multiple opportunities to reflect and apply their learning to an authentic audience. The course starts with them creating a digital portfolio to be shared and reviewed by peers. The units continue with students creating online books for younger students to teach students how to understand about themselves and their communities, and even creating public service announcements for their peers to understand more about differences in others. All units culminate in an authentic, purposeful project which will be added to their digital portfolio and showcased. In addition to using technology tools for expression of learning, we will use technology to assess students with LCAP-like assessments based on reading, speaking, writing, and listening skills. Teachers in our course will revisit these assessments not only to show growth and improvement, but to guide and drive their instruction. With the assessments built around speaking, listening, reading, and writing, coupled with evidence in the digital portfolio, students like Lucia have a captive audience of peers, teachers, and their community to not only share what they've learned about themselves, but to show how they've grown as an English learner.
Thank you, Julie. I started my career as an ESL teacher in, the light's on, maybe I needed to get closer to it. Thank you, Cindy. I started my career as an ESL teacher in 1996 in South Central LA. I've been a champion for English language learners for almost 2 decades now. Our intent here, I guess I want to be clear about our intent. Our intent is to break the mold of traditional interventions for English language development. We want to do something dramatically different. The easy route would have been to purchase a curriculum, to purchase something that was already established. We understand that that hasn't worked for our students, and it hasn't worked for a really long time. We need to do better by students like Lucia, Victoria, and Ben. They deserve better. They have stories to tell, and we need to equip them with the skills and tools that they need to tell us their powerful stories. At the conclusion of this course, Lucia would have had experiences where she reflects on herself, her family, her community, and how she fits in the world. She will have read text and watched videos on identity, community, diversity, influencers, and a lot more. She will have reflected in quick writes, engaged in conversations and shared in digital discussion boards. She will have written online children's books for her feeder school, for students in her feeder schools. She would have published public service announcements for her peers to learn from her. She would have developed her own story as a final project in a TED Talk. We could no longer hold on to our beliefs about what English learners need and how we believe that sometimes they're fragile. We need to let go of the notion that they will struggle with rigor. We've designed impeccable learning experiences which will unlock students' potential and enable them to develop and master the literacy skills they need to be the writers and the narrators of their own powerful stories. Thank you.
Thank you, and we're looking forward to a discussion after our two speakers. Ms. Gotham.
Yes, Moira Albertson and Marianne Hawk.
Is this on? Yes. So again, this is from a committee meeting. We took public input, so I'm just reading other people's input. One is there continues to be concern that our diploma, we don't have a diploma option that is accessible necessarily for all of our students with disabilities, so I am reading that. Develop more pathways for multidisciplinary credit. I think people hear the word option two and think option, and then when it's not available at every site, there's a frustration. Expand options for A to G coursework with more alternative means of satisfying A to G requirements at more sites for more students, and then meaningful course of study for all students with project-based learning offering entry points for all students.
Thank you. Next.
Hello again, Marianne Hawk, bringing comments from the GATE DAC. Gifted students in this district do not have equitable access to a rigorous and challenging curriculum. And the district's policy is exacerbating that inequity. The district is actually handicapping already underserved student populations who they claim to be trying to help. All students are not getting equitable access to GATE. In fact, principals are also quietly shutting down their GATE programs. I brought along these statistics just to share with you to show about the inequities. S is for seminar, CL for cluster. We're looking at schools that have under 18% free and reduced price lunch versus two schools that have over 90%. So these are the lower income schools. You can see that in the higher income schools, 16% identified as seminar versus 1.6, 16.5 versus 1.1. Even in the cluster, 27% versus 9.9. So we are not giving equitable access to these programs to all the students, and this really needs to be fixed. And the GATE DAC has many suggestions for how to address this, and we'd love to work with you on these problems. Thank you.
Thank you to the board members. They've given me a timeline here, and according to that timeline, we have until 3:05. So as you're talking, keep in mind that we're about at 12 minutes for the five of us. Having said that, you want to start out, John?
60 seconds. New English learner course, but you're talking about a new English learner course for long-term English learners, as opposed to a new English learner showing up on the first day of school. Okay. So basically what you're talking about is I mean, there is obviously a segregation here, but you're talking about they've been in the system a long time and it hasn't worked. And so this is an intervention at that point to make a more focused intervention to get them ready to move on from being a long-term English learner to being proficient, right?
Yes, the goal is to reclassify them
Right.
after this course,
Okay,
or
thanks.
during this course, actually.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Pereira.
Yes, could you just clarify, so who's going to take the course? How is the course structured over, a school year, and who's going to teach the course?
So, and going back to our data,
slide.
So this course is designed for students who would be enrolled in the ALD course. So we're using the ALD course, so they would have already finished their ELD sequence. So after that ELD sequence, they would be enrolled into the new ALD course. Yes. For 1 year.
And for kids who haven't been reclassified.
Correct. Exactly. This is for students who have gone through the ELD course without reclassification. The ALD course teachers? Yes, those ones. So we are designing professional development and training along with this because we know that it's going to require some education on everybody's part, especially the technology piece, to enroll that into our system. I think that that's what we're thinking about. How do we do that and equip our teachers to be able to teach this? Yes.
Mr. Pfizer?
With these courses, what are the class sizes we're shooting for? It's a 36-to-1, or are we looking at a lower ratio to allow for more support for these students that obviously need more support?
Yeah, at this time, we haven't determined that the class size would actually be lower than what's already allocated for these classes or classes in general. But we do know that this class isn't meant to supplant the regular English class. So the class size is going to vary based on the number of English learners at particular sites. So, I mean, it just varies on the school, actually.
So as a district, it could be 36-to-1.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Dr. McCreary?
Yeah, so question on a similar aspect in terms of your academic language development. Is it going to be a multi-age group? So when students either pass or move from their ELs, they get reclassified to fluent English speakers, then they go into the ALD program?
No, these are students that have not been reclassified. And so these are students that have not passed the LCAP assessment. So I thought I heard in your comment students
Right.
who had passed. These are students
Who are your long-term?
Long-term English learners. But to address the first part of your question, students are not going to be in these courses based on grade level. So there could very well be in an ALD course that's offering this curriculum, students from different grade levels in that particular course.
So it's whenever they arrive at that school, and actually, or they have to be long term. So they have to have gone through that 5th year.
Yes.
Not reclassified.
Yes.
What about new arriving students who are still ELs?
So those students go through their regular course of sequence in going through ELD 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they wouldn't be candidates for this particular course until they've completed that course of study.
Okay, then somewhat related, our test results indicate that students who are reclassified perform very well. So we're not lowering the standard, have not lowered the standard, but it shows that we're identifying, students are being identified appropriately. But we also are challenged by having students perform well, and say in mathematics, for example. Is there an effort to work with students who have been reclassified to develop their ability to function in the academic areas like mathematics? And what support are we providing students who are EL students so we can increase their success in higher levels of mathematics and move them towards higher graduation rates?
The district is responsible for providing additional support to students who have reclassified for an additional 2 years. And so in conjunction with the Office of Language Acquisition, school leaders and teachers are tasked with continuing to monitor the progress of English learners beyond their reclassification date. Does that address specifically how students are doing in classes like math? I don't know. That's something that we have to think about and something that we could actually look into.
Thank you. And the questioning line that Dr. McCrary was going down is where my questions center around. In fact, he probably worded them better, because that's the one comment I get, particularly from the Crawford community, that we're reclassifying folks so fast and not offering that support to them ongoing. And he focused on the fact that math is an area the community members whom I've spoken to and parents are concerned about what kind of support are we offering, because some first graders are now being reclassified throughout. And I did hear what you said about the data show that we are meeting their needs. They're performing at the level as the other students. But on the other hand, there's a perception that we're not offering that kind of support that students need beyond being reclassified.
In order to address that, when we think about Tier 1 instruction and quality Tier 1 instruction, that's where that differentiation comes in, and the scaffolds and supports for all learners would come in. So if we realize that there's a student who may have reclassified and may still need some support and assistance, that would be done through the lesson design process, where the teacher would know their student, know the gaps and where they need to go, and design specific scaffolds in instruction for that student. And I would imagine that would be for any student along the way.
That's an excellent answer, and I really like that. But I kind of go back to the observation or the meeting we had at Faith School. You remember that? And they were doing all these wonderful things, and we sat there and wondered, how far is this going? I've talked about scalability today. That was a first, second grade group, somewhere in there. But, I mean, what about a third or fourth grade students who's been reclassified? What are we doing to ensure that, and they've not had this training, the support that we're talking about. That's what I'm talking about, how we've got to expand it so that it's not just for a few teachers who are getting that reinforcement and that support, but it's got to be throughout the system, because otherwise those kids don't have that. Am I making myself clear on that? Yes, yes.
Yes, I understand, and I was telling Dr. Mike, we actually missed him at one of our final walkthroughs. He's been joining us for this, and I agree with you. The power that we see when we are side by side with teachers in the classroom and addressing the needs of all of our learners and expanding that experience, it can't be necessarily, I shouldn't say can't, let me rephrase. We have to reimagine how we can provide those experiences to each and every teacher for each and every learner, because we do know there's power there. And I believe that we, like some of our other colleagues that you've heard about, are in the process of designing some interventions and scaffolds and supports that can be available to all teachers. And we will work on some videotapes as well, so it might be the next best thing until we can get into each and every classroom.
And let me just clarify, because we've talked a lot about, after you and Richard went to Fay and saw the coaching cycles, we talk about scalability. Part of what Teresa was talking about was every teacher redesigning their lesson. So lesson design across the system is each and every student. Coaching cycles is actually investing in a specific focused area. What that teacher learns then gets spread throughout that school. So Teresa was talking about two different things. What happens in a coaching cycle and the type of learning that happens there scales in a different way than when we figure out how to support teachers to redesign every single lesson. That's where scale comes from.
I think we're all on the same page. We want all the kids to learn, and for English language learners, even if they hadn't reclassified, to get that ongoing support as they move forward in the system wherever they are, fourth, fifth, whatever grade level they're at. And I'm bringing up the next team. Thank you all for that.
Thank you.
You did a good job. Thank you.
President Whitehurst Payne stays on schedule. 3:05 exactly. I think this is historic. Every single board workshop that we've had, by this time, we've been at least 20 or 30 minutes behind. I will say that Dr. Whitehurst Payne and I had a sidebar on the videos. You got to see some while this team's coming up, you got to see some students present live and in person, but the videos also have voices from the field and the strength and the diversity out in the field. So we're going to recommend that we get those videos up and running during the dinner break or lunch break or whatever we call this thing at 5:30, dinner. So we'd like you to see those videos at that point. So now